Bruchim haboim. Welcome everyone. We're about to begin Be'ezras Hashem together on Daf Yud Beis Amud Aleph, 8 lines from the top. The Mishnah taught us that a person who uses certain kelim for his malacha, he cannot go out on Erev Shabbos Samuch L'Chashecha because maybe he will then carry those kelim even on Shabbos. And the Mishnah brought an example of a chayat, of a tailor. He cannot walk out Samuch L'Chashecha with his needle because maybe he will take that needle needle that he normally uses for his tailoring, and he will carry it on Shabbos as well. Not only a needle which is so small, but even the Mishnah brings something larger, like a scribe who might take out a quill. Therefore, he also cannot walk with his quill even Samuch L'Chashecha half an hour before Shabbos, because maybe he will forget on Shabbos and carry the quill on Shabbos. This is true for anybody who typically goes out with something in his hands or in his pockets. Samuch L'Chashecha. Says the Gemara an exception to this rule. Tani di Rabbi Yishmael. Yoisei Adam b'tfilin be'erev Shabbos im Chashecha. A person can go out with his tefillin on Erev Shabbos with Chashecha Erev Shabbos, even though tefillin was typically worn all day long. Here we have an exception, and we're concerned that he's going to wear them on Shabbos. Why? Says the Gemara, my time, what's the reason? Kevan da Omar Rabbi Barav Huna Chayev Adam lemashmesh b'tfilin kosho v'sho kavachomer mitzitz. Since a person is obligated to touch his tefillin all of the time, as a kal v'chomer that we learn from tzitz. Tzitz was the head plate, the golden head plate that the Kohen Gadol wore on his forehead, and that was one of the Shmona Big Day Kahuna. It said on the head plate, Kodesh LaHashem. So we learn a Kal Vachomer from Tzitz. What was the Kal Vachomer? Ma Tzitz she'ein boy ella azkara achas. Amra Torah v'hoya al mitzchoy tamid. Tzitz, this head plate, which only has one azkara. It mentions Hashem's name only once on that head plate. And still the Pasuk says, v'hoya al mitzchoy tamid. It'll be on his metzach always. Now, I want to read you the entire pasuk to appreciate this drasha. The beginning of the pasuk says, "V'hoya al metzach Aharon," that it would be, this head plate would be, the tzitz would be on the forehead of Aharon. It goes on to say, "V'nosan Aaron as avon hakodshim asher yakdishu b'nei Yisrael lekol matnos kodsheihem," and Aaron will then lift up, he'll take up the iniquities of the kodshim that Bnei Israel sanctified. V'haya al mitzchoy tamid. The pasuk goes on to say again, and the tzitz will be on his meitzach, on his forehead always. Lerotin lahem lifnei Hashem. So the fact that the Torah mentions in the same pasuk the second time, it's superfluous. V'haya al mitzchoy tamid is now to be used as a drasha. What does it mean that it should be on his head for always? Shelo yasiach daitoi mimenu, that you should not then forget about the tzitz. The Kohen Gadol should not forget the tzitz that is on his forehead, and therefore he must touch the tzitz and not mesiach das from it. So then, if that's true, when it comes to tzitz, which is only one azkara, tefillin sheyesh bohen azkara is harbe al achas kama vekama. Tefillin, which has many Shem Hashem, many names of Hashem mentioned in the Dalit Parshios of the tefillin. Certainly a person should touch his tefillin regularly as not to then have hesech hadas from the tefillin. Practically that means that a person during tefillah, so he doesn't have to touch his tefillin because it's considered to be that he's already not me'asiach das. But when he's not davening and he has tefillin on, then he has to touch his tefillin regularly. And the opposite of hesech hadas, the opposite of not being nohe kedusha with the tefillin is having kalus hadas, and that causes therefore the hesech hadas that we're concerned about. Thereby, a person has to touch his tefillin regularly to not be mesiach das from the tefillin. In other words, here we're saying, since a person's constantly touching his tefillin, hilkach midkar dochir lehu, then he will always remember the tefillin, and therefore, if a person's always touching his tefillin, he will then not go out in the Rishus HaRabim on Shabbos and then forget about the tefillin that is on his head, whereby he's allowed to even wear them samuch l'chashecha, because he'll remember to then take them off before Shabbos. Tanya, we have a brisa. Chananya oimer, chayev adam lemashmesh begadov erev Shabbos im chashecha. A person is obligated to touch his clothing on erev Shabbos, right before nightfall. In other words, to feel his pockets and places where he might be carrying something on his begadim. Rav Yosef Hilchasa Rabosi l'Shabbos. This is a great teaching, an important teaching on Shabbos, for Hilchos Shabbos, and this is what we say also right after the Bamed Malikin, between Kabbalah Shabbos and Mariv on Shabbos, in order to remind us that we should touch our clothing. We have pockets in order to remember we don't have anything in our pockets, that we're carrying anything when we go out to the Divshus Harabim. Says the Gemara, quoting our Mishnah, Liyifale es kelov, a person shall not check his garments for lice. Iboiluhu asks the Gemara the following question: Lo yifale es kelov bayoim shemi yaharoig. A person shall not check his garments for lice during the day. Perhaps he will kill his lice. And here there's an emphasis of during the day, when you have plenty of light, but maybe he will kill the lice when he's doing so. Rabbi Eliezer and this is the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer, the Tanya. Om Rabbi Eliezer, ha-horeg kina b'Shabbos, ki-ilu horeg gamal. Rabbi Eliezer is of the opinion that just like it's usher to kill an animal as big as an animal like a gamal, because that's one of the 39 malachos of taking a nefesh, so too, when it comes even to a small kina, by killing a kina, that would be equally considered to be taking the nefesh and being an iser malacha on Shabbos. V'lo yikra la'or haner shemayite. And you cannot read on the or of the ner. We said a ner is a kli that has oil and it has also a psila. And therefore, many times the psila, the wick, will not have enough oil and it'll start getting dim. So therefore a person is likely to then tilt the ner so that the wick will get more oil and then produce more light. And that would be an iser midiraisa of havara, of kindling a flame. So therefore they made a takana, a person shall not read by the or of the ner. Shema yate. That's one side. So that means that a person shall not check his kalim, his begadim, for lice, because maybe he will kill the lice. Odilma travayu shemayata, or maybe the reason for not being able to check for the lice in one's garments is the same reason why a person cannot read by the or haner, because shemayate. Toshma, let's bring a proof from the following brisa: Ein poilin ve'ein karin la'or haner. You cannot check lice from your clothes, ve'ein karin, and you cannot read la'or haner. So here the Gemara wants to bring a brisa to imply a proof that the reason why you cannot check your garments for lice is because shemayate, like the second side. Ask the Gemara, mi alimo mi masnisin, is this brisa any greater, any stronger than our own Mishnah? After all, our Mishnah said that it says Loi yefale es kelov v'lo yikra la'or haner. So therefore, it also said both of these things, and it said at the end la'or haner. So there, we also had a suffix in our Mishnah. We don't know emphatically whether that which is a shemayata is also going on checking your garments for lice. Certainly, it's going on reading, but is it also going on that? We don't know. So how can you tell me that the brisa that says the same thing is even more of a way to prove what we're saying? The Mishnah, we have a suffix, certainly then the brisa is no proof. Toshma, let's bring a proof from a different brisa. Ein poilin le'or haner ve'ein karin le'or haner. Here the brisa says clearly that you cannot check the garments for your making sure they don't have lice, le'or haner, and it says also you cannot read le'or haner. So these are obviously the same reason, because shemayate. Eilu min halacha she'omru ba'aliyos Chananya ben Chizkiya ben Garon shmamina tetravayu shemayate shmamina. Therefore, we can drive that both of these are for the same reason, shemayate again. Perhaps you will then tilt the ner, causing havara b'Shabbos was an iser deraisa. Therefore, they said you cannot neither check your garments for lice nor read la'or haner. Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel, afilu lahavchin ben bigdoi lebigdei ishtoi. Not only can you not do these things la'or haner, but you can also not mimavchin, to distinguish between your beged, which is a man's beged, and the beged of his wife, because that would also cause you to then shemayate, if the light is not good enough, since they're similar enough. Omar Rava, when is there similar enough that you can't do this? La'or haner, la'amron ela de bnei mechuzo, aval de bnei chakalayito midei yadei. This is only by bnei mechuzo, where they had clothing that the men's clothes had also sleeves that were wide, just like women's sleeves, and therefore they cannot be distinguished so easily. Aval, but the bnei chaklaisa, those who did live in the rural area and they did work on the fields, their sleeves were typically more narrow, and therefore they were different than the women's sleeves. Then midei yadi, then they would know, and therefore there's no problem to then distinguish. V'habnei mechuzah nami lo'yamon ela de zkenos, ava de yaldos midei yadei. This is also only a problem for the bnei mechuzah, gabe, the women's clothes of zkenos, of the older women, because then they had sleeves that would be similar to the men's. Aval the yaldos, those women who were younger, they were much wider, and therefore they certainly would not be similar to the men's, and therefore you would know them and wouldn't have a problem of shemayate on Shabbos. Tanu Rabbanan, the Gemara brings a brayso in regards to then checking lice in one's garments. Ein poilin b'rishus harabim b'nei hakavod. Even during the week, a person should not check his garments for lice in the rishus harabim, in the public area, because it would be considered to be disgusting to people, and therefore b'nei hakavod, one should not do so. Kayotze, by similarly, Omar Rabbi Yehuda, v'Amar Lo Rabbi Nechemya, ein oisin apikdoizin b'rishus harabim b'nei hakavod. A person should not induce himself to throw up, to vomit in the rishus harabim, because that again would be repulsive to other people. B'nei hakavod. Again, this is talking about during the week. Tanu Rabbanon, the Gemara brings a brayso in regards to checking one's garments. Hamefales kelov, when a person does check his garments, now we're talking back to Shabbos, for lice, moilel v'zorek ubilvad shelo yaharog. He can then take those lice and he can roll them on his fingers and throw them, so long as he doesn't kill them. Now this Tana holds that it's aser midrabanon to kill lice, but there's no iser min haTorah, and therefore a person can go ahead and take them, roll them by then weakening them, not to then bother him anymore, and then throw them. But he has to be careful not to kill them. Abba Shol oimer noitel v'zorek ubilvad shelo yimlo. Rabbi Shol is of the opinion that it's aser midiaraisa to kill lice, and therefore he says you can take them and throw them, but be careful not to roll them, because by rolling them there's a potential for you to kill them, and therefore that would be aser. So therefore the only thing you can do is only then flick them off and throw them away, but not to then roll them on your fingers. Rav Huna halacha moilel v'zorek. The halacha is that you shall pick them up and rub and roll them, and then throw them out. V'zeu kevoidoi v'afilu bechol. And this is a respectful way of doing it, as opposed to smashing them and killing them. And that's how a person should do it even during the week. Now, we haven't seen an opinion yet that it is mutter to go ahead and kill lice on Shabbos. Until now we saw that it's either aser midirabanan or it's aser deraisa, but soon we'll see that it's actually mutter lefi beis Hillel to kill lice lichatchila. Rabba mekataluhu, and therefore Rabba, he killed them. Rav Sheshet mekataluhu, and he also would be noeg to kill lice that he found on his garments on Shabbos. Rava shadi lihu lekanedamyo. Rava, he threw the lice in a pool of water, in a safal, of water. Omar lehu Rav Nachman lebante kitulin v'ashmeinen li kala desavanusi. He said to his daughters, kill the lice, so that I can hear the voice of my enemies. He's trying to stress that there's no problem to kill lice on Shabbos. Like the following opinion, like we'll soon see, the opinion of Beis Hillel. Tanya, Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar Omer, ein hargin es hama'achoyles b'Shabbos divrei Beis Shammai. Beis Shammai is the opinion that you cannot kill lice on Shabbos. Ubeis Hillel matirin. Beis Hillel says it's mutter. Now, why is it mutter? We said before there's opinions say that it's asur min Torah, and we saw opinion that it's asur midrabanan. So, what is the opinion that it's mutter lechatchila to kill lice? Beis Hillel, and that is because that which you say that it's asur to take a life on Shabbos, that is for a beria that is para v'rava ayidei zachav and nekeva. And therefore, an animal, a gamal certainly, right, would be also to take its nefesh. But when it comes to these type of lice that we're referring to over here, where it's not the way zachar and nekeva, and they multiply only out of sweat from a person's body or his hair, his scalp, then it's not also to kill them. And therefore, there were all these amaroim and tanoim or noeg to kill lice. A person, according to Beis Shammai, cannot meshadech tinoikos on Shabbos, because that would be an infraction of the divrei Kabbalah of mimso chefzecha, of doing your own business, v'lo es hatinok l'lamdoi sefer, and not to hire somebody to teach your son sefer v'lamdoi umnus, or to teach him a trade. Ve'menacham min avelim ve'emevakrin choylin b'Shabbos. These are for two different reasons. Not to be mitzdayer, therefore you should not menachim avelim, and also not to mevakir choylin. Divrei Beis Shammai u'Beis Hillel matirin. Beis Hillel is matir all of these things.